And it's a well-functioning, it's a stable democracy, it's a peaceful island in the midst of very unruly water, but it's also an autonomous entity.
Hello people, welcome back to our channel. It's always your girl Pleasure bringing you political news in our channel Ghanatube. And as a constant reminder that this is actually a better place to get all your Ghana news, trending news and what is actually happening in Ghana, following all the actions that our president has actually been taking to make sure that Ghana becomes the best as he has always promised. Don't forget the accountability and all the vices, all the implementations that President John Mahama and the ministers are actually doing already. Please.
Now, the European Union's new ambassador to Ghana, Skinnebag, officially began his 4-year mission in September this year. But this isn't his first time in Ghana. Nearly 3 decades ago, he started his diplomatic career right here at the EU delegation in Accra, making his first posting sometime of homecoming. Well, with over 20 years of experience in European diplomacy, from Brussels to Malawi and Zambia, Ambassador Skinnebag now leads a renewed effort to strengthen EU-Ghana relations beyond development aid, with a sharper focus on trade, security, youth empowerment, and sustainability. Today, we explore what that new chapter and what that means to Ghana, for the EU's strategic interest in West Africa, and for the future of his enduring partnership, in this particular enduring partnership with the EU. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador. How are you feeling? 30 years on, you're back in this country. How does it feel to be back in Ghana?
Well, thanks, Amefa, and thanks for having me this morning. No, I'm truly thrilled to be back. As you can imagine, it's a completely different Ghana that I'm finding now than I did in the mid-90s when I first arrived here at what is now the domestic airport.
Right.
But whilst everything certainly in Accra has changed, the one thing that remains the same is the warmth and the welcoming attitude of the Ghanaian people, and unfortunately my office building.
Oh, has it changed?
Not at all.
It's still the same. That must have brought you some nostalgic feeling.
Yes, but not unambiguous, because it was already a bit outdated then.
Okay.
Imagine today.
Well, years ago when you came, do you remember your favorite staple, what you were eating, and are you still eating that now?
So I have a feeling somehow that the fufu has been replaced by the jollof rice. Listen, so far I've been working far too many hours and explored too little. So I hope when we meet in a year or two that I will have much more stories to tell from my favorite staples and activities. But meanwhile, I'm still discovering. I'm very much in a landing mode, as you can imagine, and trying to get around and see people and make sure that they see me also.
Right, for all the years that you've been out, of course, you've been on diplomacy work, working strategically. You're back in Ghana as the ambassador. Let me in your vision, your goal, your ambition as ambassador.
So I think over the years, my role has changed significantly. I started out as a young development worker here in Ghana, and then the European Commission, as we were called then, was a development agency, a development partner to Ghana. Since then, Ghana has evolved, but so has the EU. And the EU is becoming much more of a union, much less of a development partner, much more of a diplomatic partner. It also means that my role has changed from doing development cooperation, from promoting European values and principles, to one where I'm supposedly promoting European interests. Now, that could sound like a bad thing, but as it happens in today's interconnected world, of course, the Ghanaian and the European interests are coinciding on a number of fronts. And the proof is that whilst the EU remains the #1 donor to Ghana, it is also the #1 trading partner, and it is the #1 investor in Ghana. So those elements, especially the trade and the investment, is something that I intend to focus on during my tenure here. We have 4 years. We have a lot of new and interesting tools coming from the EU that I intend to explore at a maximum to the benefit of Ghana, but also to the EU.
Right. I mean, that's quite a broad ambition and a very big goal as well. But I just as well see that it sits perfectly in the broad scope of the EU objective as well for us as Ghana. Currently in Ghana, as you've come to meet, what's the real relationship as it is, as we speak, the EU and Ghana? Let us in the relationship.
We have a very solid relationship. Not only do we have 50 years, next year it will be 50 years of physical presence in the country. We have a series of agreements that have governed our relationship. Now it's called the Samoa Agreement. We have very strong pillars. We have a security partnership which is being developed. We have a recently signed FLEG, so it's a forest or timber regulatory framework that is signed between the EU and Ghana. It's the second in the world, the first on the African continent, allowing for smooth, seamless timber trading between Ghana and the EU in a sustainable manner. We have, of course, very strong voting track, I would say, together also on the multilateral arena, notably when it comes to Russian aggression against Ukraine, where Ghana have been quite supportive. I know that Ghana is a founder of the non-alignment, that it likes to be the friends to everybody and the enemy of none. I also know in today's fragmented world, this is getting increasingly difficult, of course. And this is a relationship that I also want to cultivate.
Okay. Where particularly are you starting with? If you look at the goal of the EU and the kind of partnership we have as a country, very broad, though they're very interconnected, where would you like to start from in this country?
I think now I'm still in this assessment phase. Of course, I don't land in a vacuum. There was somebody before me. There has been a proper handover. I see what we're doing well and where we can do better.
Right.
But I also have to adapt to the context. So lots of people ask me about, welcome to Ghana. What are you going to do about the Galamsey?
Did that surprise you?
It did, because Ghana today is a middle-income country, albeit lower middle income, and it's a well-functioning, it's a stable democracy, it's a peaceful island in the midst of very unruly water, but it's also an autonomous entity. And these issues are, of course, Ghanaian issues. We are here to support you in solving or addressing the challenges that you're facing. And when it comes to illegal fisheries, or it comes to Galamsey, this is ultimately things that needs to be addressed politically. And that's definitely not my field.
Right.
What I can do is, when the right decisions are being made, then I can step in and offer our support. Because of course we support you in taking the right decision.
It's quite fascinating that the question of Galamsey has come to the fore for you. Many have said that for the EU, even if you could not maybe tackle it head on, because these are very direct issues in the country, and considering that Ghana is a sovereign country, they must deal with it politically, well willing for them, and the EU would come to support. From where you sit, while I appreciate that you're still in a very formative stage, do you foresee certain decisions and actions that the EU can take that can compel Ghana, at least, to want to tackle the illegal mining and illegal fishing as well? Do you foresee, just on the face of it?
So I think that, first of all, I want to reiterate that we, as a long-standing partner to Ghana, we stand here ready to support. At the same time, it is clear that, for example, the Galamsey, the moment that the pollution from Galamsey affects the vegetables that Ghana is trying to export to the EU, there will be dire consequences, because it's not that we are sanctioning Ghana, it's simply that we do not, we don't want Ghanaian consumers, but certainly not European consumers, to eat sweet potatoes with the mercury residues in them. So there will be a stop, an arrest of the export to EU, which is something that Ghana doesn't want to see, and we don't want to see it. But we need to protect our people. That's our role. So there will be elements or scenarios that we want to avoid, and that is where we are ready to step in and help. How can we help? Well, we can support the political decisions. So the moment there is a decision that requires the establishment of a regulatory framework, the moment that there is a need for certain equipment to control development, to assess pollution, that is where we can step in and assist.
Maybe let's take it one after the other. Ghana, just like the EU, of course, you may have been saddled or you've had some hurdles with some tariff situations across board. And for Ghana as well, our president just announced the zero tariff with China, of course. I'm quite curious, the EU, are you imagining, are you anticipating some package in terms of tariffs for Ghana as well?
But we have it. We have it since 2016, and before that we had preferential access to Ghana. So we changed it because WTO told us that it was illegal to have the indiscriminatory free access that we had, and then we developed the economic partnership agreements to which Ghana has signed up, which gives them the best deal Ghana can imagine. Now, contrary to China, we have a balanced trade with Ghana. There's a negative trading balance for Ghana with China, whilst with Europe it's very balanced. It's a few billion margin, so 360 billion both ways, I think, or 3.60 in terms of trading. So no, I guess zero tariffs is good. Balance is important. With EU, you have it both.
Okay.
You've had it for a long time.
Yeah, the one that existed already, you're going to be enforcing it, and which is balanced tariff.
Balanced tariff, but also balanced trade.
Okay.
No tariffs.
Okay. Let's talk about one thing that you mentioned in your earlier submission. You talked about the forest law. And I like to think this is throttling to climate conversations. Let me in on these laws.
No, I think we have three focal sectors here in Ghana where we like to target our activities. One is economic transformation, one is sustainability, and one is peace and stability. Clearly, when it comes to sustainability, it describes itself in the wider climate-related context, but it's also something that is particularly relevant to Ghana, where we see that there are all these challenges. Now the Ghanaian economy is based on, well, a lot of weight is based on the two pillars of cocoa and gold, both sectors that potentially can be quite harsh to the environment. And therefore, we want to assist Ghana to the extent that Ghana wants to be assisted in finding a sustainable way of exploring the potential of Ghana. And now, same when it comes to timber, you have a lot of timber. We are keen to have a timber trade with Europe, but we want it to be a sustainable timber trade.
Okay.
And this is with the FLAKE, the forestry legislation framework that we have just signed with Ghana. This is what is assured. There's no need to do further due diligence. When you trade with Europe, Europe can import timber from Ghana because you have the processes and standards in place to ensure that your timber export is sustainable.
What does sustainable timber trade look like for you? Paint a picture for me.
Well, first of all, it means durable. It means that it is a resource that you can continue to benefit from in the future. Secondly, it means security for the European consumers, that they are not benefiting from an overexploitation of resources in Ghana, but that when they buy Ghanaian products, then they buy a sustainable product which is durable and which can continue to flow in. It means that trees are being planted when they're being cut.
Well, earlier you mentioned that, of course, and prior to your arrival in Ghana, one of the topical conversations was illegal mining, and you realize that it will keep going back and forth on this particular table, and so pardon me if it comes back again. Well, you mentioned that, of course, you do not want the European countries to be, of course, consuming vegetables or produce from Ghana that are quite contaminated, and of course even the Ghanaian people themselves as well. While you're here for 4 years, you have been here for, say, a few months already, and beyond you submitting your credentials to the president. The impact of it, the way we're going as a country, what can you foretell? What can you foresee?
It's early days for me to foresee anything. What I sense is that it's a multi-layered, a very complex issue. I also understand that there is a difference in the perspective on whether you live in urban areas or in rural areas. I think that it is still a bit theoretical and speculative for many people, but that the concrete consequences are just around the corner, because it's not only about export to Europe, it's also about what if Ghana suddenly has to import its own drinking water? Then I think the Ghanaians, then it becomes very real to the Ghanaians, and if not before, then I think it will be addressed.
Right. I've also just been reading about the Global Gateway Initiative. I'm quite interested in that. What's in it for Ghana?
So that is what I alluded to before when I talked about our new tools and instruments. I think back in 2022 at the African Union EU Summit, the Global Gateway was launched. A Global Gateway is a merger of development financing, of international financing institutions and private sector. It is EU that offers 300 billion euros, of which half should go to the African continent. So there's 150 billion euros for Africa here. Now, we are leaving the old logic of donor-beneficiary relations. We're leaving it because there's too much demand for European resources. We need to get used to having a war at our doorstep with the Russian aggression against Ukraine. We need to be able to address the multiple crises that we see throughout the world. And we also see that there's increasing demand. And the Global Gateway, with its 150 billion for Africa, transform what we used to give as grants into investments.
Okay.
It is, what's in it for Ghana depends a lot on Ghana. If Ghana can make itself an attractive harbor for investments, and it is now, we have over $1 billion already coming to Ghana for major infrastructure projects, for backside production, for solar parks, for clean cities and water in the north. So there are lots of stuff is happening. But of course, just like Ghanaians, I want more of it to come to Ghana. And this is what I intend to work on in the coming 4 years, is to make sure that Ghana is more attractive for investments. Not just more attractive than it is now, but more attractive than its neighboring countries, because it's a competitive world out there, and because it's private sector driven, they are in it for the bottom line, you can imagine. And so we need to make sure that Ghana is attractive in terms of facility of establishing business, in terms of possibilities of doing the right things. And then it's important that Global Gateway is not just an investment package. It's a European investment package. So it comes in accordance with European principles about quality, about sustainability, and durability.
Please do well to like, comment, and follow. Put on notification bell so you get all our news one by one. Thanks.